Hello friends, welcome to another book video of mine. If you are new here, my name is Rachelle. Today in this video, we are gonna get a little hot and bothered because we are talking about romance novels. Since the beginning of September, I have been binging romance novels, specifically Elle Kennedy's romance novels from the Off-Campus and Briar U series. It was just so perfect to read during this time because these books take place in college and I am currently in college myself. So the vibe was very fitting, especially because it was back to school season. So today in this video, I will be combining both the Off-Campus and Briar U series and ranking her books from my least favorite to my favorite. I actually loved reading each and every book. It was actually so difficult to rank them, but somehow I did. I'll admit, some of the books were just a no-brainer to where they will land on the spectrum, but some of the books I was just like, I don't really know how to rank this. Should it go here or should it go here? Quite a few of the books were actually neck and neck for me. So for these books, I don't actually have the physical copy of them. I actually ended up getting the ebook versions, but after reading these books and just loving them so much, I honestly wish I got the physical copies of these books. This is just a random thought. I found out about a week ago that Elle Kennedy is Canadian, and I am so here for that because if you didn't know, I am Canadian as well. I also found out that she went to the same university that I now go to. Isn't that cool? Like, what are the odds? Anyways, this is getting so off topic. If you haven't already done so, be sure to subscribe to my channel, click the bell icon to stay up to date of when and what I post, and give this video a thumbs up. And without further ado, let's get into ranking the Off-Campus and Briar U series. Okay, coming in at number 9, we have The Dare. This is book number 4 in the Briar U series, and it is Connor's book. This book follows Connor, who recently transferred to Briar U from California, and he is one of the hockey players on the Briar U team. Taylor, however, hoped to attend college to escape her ugly duckling image, but instead she ends up in a sorority full of mean girls. So at a party, Taylor is given a dare to hook up with Connor. However, instead of actually fooling around, Taylor asks Connor to pretend that they are getting together. It turns out that Connor loves games, so he agrees to Taylor's request, but after pretending for one night, he wants to keep going with it, and so Taylor and Connor begin to fake date. The first thing I have to say about this book is that it was so refreshing because it was the only book out of both the Briar U series and the Off-Campus series that did not portray the female protagonist as someone who was drop-dead gorgeous with a perfect body. Seeing the ugly duckling end up with a popular jock on campus was just so different and something I liked a lot. That being said, although I liked the ugly duckling part, I wasn't so much of a fan of Taylor's character. In the book, Taylor saw herself as fat, and apparently she was also fat-shamed in the past, which obviously made her very insecure about herself. Insecurities are a very real thing. I can't argue with that because everybody has them in very different contexts, but it was the way her insecurity was portrayed that bothered me. She accepted herself and her physique because Connor loved her the way she was, which is totally fine, but I just wish she didn't need a hot guy to make her feel validated. I really wish she came to terms with her body on her own. Another thing I wasn't a fan of about Taylor's perspective is the voice her character had. Her insecurity and her thoughts about her own body were just a little overly stated for me. I get that self-acceptance is a very long process, and your insecurity may be something you dwell on a lot, so I do understand why her character's voice is the way it is, but my main issue with Taylor calling herself fat all the time is that it was similarly stated many times throughout the book to the point that it kind of just got a little repetitive. Overall, this book wasn't a bad read, and I did have a good time reading it, but it's not quite one of my favorite Elle Kennedy books. I ended up giving this book a 3-star rating on Goodreads, which in my opinion is still a very good rating. Coming in at number 8 is The Mistake, which is book number 2 of the Off-Campus series. This book follows Logan, a junior in college, and Grace, who is a freshman. Logan accidentally meets Grace after showing up at the wrong building for a party. After meeting and spending a little time together, they develop an attraction, but when a thoughtless mistake pushes Grace away, Logan plans to spend his senior year proving to her that he is worth a second chance. In my opinion, this book wasn't bad, but it wasn't amazing either. There is something missing in this book, but I just can't put my finger on what that thing is. This book also kind of just started off slow, but I don't think it ever really picked up for me. Yes, there were steamy moments and elements that make a romance novel great, but it all just kind of came at a very steady pace. With books that have a slow intro, I usually find myself getting hooked at some point. Unfortunately, that didn't happen to me in this book. I actually found myself rushing to finish this book because I just wanted to get to the next book. The individual backstory development of both Grace and Logan were great, but the overall romance part around Grace and Logan just wasn't it for me. me. Don't get me wrong, they are great as a couple and I do like seeing them together, but it's the events that happened in their relationship that doesn't really sit well with me. The romantic journey fell a little more to the cheesy side for me. I also didn't really like the freshman perspective and the drama that was associated with it. To be more specific, it's the friendship between Grace and Ramona and Ramona's group of friends. Yes, Grace admitted that Ramona's friends weren't really her friends. She only hung out with them because of Ramona, but Ramona and her friends are just a little superficial and shallow, which is shown by their personalities and actions. If I'm gonna be honest, as a college student myself, that didn't feel like a college drama or situation at all, even as a freshman. It kind of felt more like a high school drama forced into a college setting. For this book, I also gave it a 3-star rating. It was definitely a decent read, but again, it wasn't one of my favorites in comparison to the others. Coming in at number 7 is The Chase, which is the first book in the Briar U series. This book is about Summer, who is Dean's little sister. For those of you who don't know, Dean is from the Off-Campus series. Colin Fitzgerald, also known as Fitz or Fitzy, is a sexy, nerdy gamer and a tattooed hockey-playing jock. His athletic ability on the ice is a complete opposite to his nerdy side, the side that doesn't want to be in the spotlight. So Summer had a crush on Fitz ever since they first met. Finally, on the night that they get to spend a little time together, Summer is sure she is sensing an attraction from him until she overhears what he actually thinks of her. However, after what she heard, Summer still finds herself attracted to Fitz. Okay, I really wanted to love this book. It was alright, but it wasn't as good as I hoped it would be. I guess overall, I was just expecting more from this book. Something I did like a lot in this book was the concept that opposites attract. Summer and Fitz are so different, and it was honestly just so cute. I also really just like how different Fitz is. I mean, he's a jock, but he's also a drama-free video gaming nerd. Those characteristics hardly go together, so his character was just really interesting to read about. But I wasn't a fan of how his backstory was written though. It pains me so much to say this because I really like Fitz, but when this book explained his backstory on why he's so quiet, it just didn't feel very deep to me. Therefore, I feel like his backstory didn't stand out enough to stick with me. I just think it could have been written better to make it more prominent somehow. Something I also have to say about this book is that I like Summer, but I also didn't like Summer. I mean, she's nice and all, but personally her character was a little too over the top for me. There were times where I found her personality a little overwhelming, so I again gave this book a 3-star rating. In the 5th spot, we have The Legacy, which is the 5th book of the Off-Campus series. This book is about the 4 couples in the Off-Campus series and their lives 3 years after graduating from college. This book was essentially a collection of novellas, but they weren't independent novellas. Each couple had their own story, but the timeline of events was continuous all the way through. I don't really know if I'm explaining that correctly, but I kind of found that interesting and I was definitely not expecting that. Let's talk about my thoughts on this book. There wasn't really anything special about it. It was just a really nice wrap up for all the characters we love so much. I definitely feel like this book could have been better though. Yes, these novellas did show us important milestones in their lives, which I'm sure is the whole point of this book and something a lot of us have been waiting for, but I wish their stories went a little deeper. Maybe it's because they were novellas and that's why they didn't. I don't really know, but it kind of just felt like a brief overview of where each character was in their life. There just wasn't much depth to the stories in my opinion. My unbiased rating of the quality of the book would be a 3 stars, but I gave it 4 stars because I genuinely enjoyed reading the novellas, probably because I was already so hyped and addicted to the series from just finishing the first 4 books before picking up this one. Sitting at number 5, we have The Play, which is the 3rd book in the Briar U series. Hunter decides to prioritize hockey by staying celibate, but that doesn't mean he can't be friends with women. Luckily, Demi already has a boyfriend, so that eliminates the temptation to touch her. However, months later, Demi is now single, and when Hunter and her are paired up for a project, not hooking up becomes a difficult task. When reading this book, you really have to be a patient reader. This book starts off pretty slow, and it was definitely a slow burn romance, which makes sense because this book starts off with Demi already having a boyfriend. So we have to see her with her first boyfriend, see them have issues, which initiates the breakup. Then we had to see Demi heal from the breakup before developing feelings for Hunter and finally becoming a couple. That right there is a pretty lengthy story arc, but it was portrayed accurately. I gotta say though, I liked Hunter's character a lot. It was definitely very interesting to see him so dedicated and serious about his vow to himself to stay celibate. And I like how his reason and his choice for doing that was supported by his backstory. He's also just a very funny character overall, and reading from his perspective was just so enjoyable. I also liked Demi a lot. There were times where I feel like she psychoanalyzed some of the things Hunter and her friends said, and I thought to myself, that's kind of relatable because one of my best friends is actually a psych major, and sometimes when I talk to her, she would also psychoanalyze some of the things I said. I also can't forget to mention the side plot of a very interesting couple. I don't think I will ever understand the connection between Hollis and Rupi, but their relationship never fails to make me laugh. Their story actually begins early on in the series and it ends here in this book. One thing that bothered me in this book was the epilogue. I was kind of expecting to see where Hunter and Demi ended up a couple years down the road, although that wasn't the case. It actually ended up taking place in the same year, but maybe like a month or two later, which I would have still been happy to read about. But what upset me the most was that it didn't even focus on Hunter and Demi's relationship. Sure, they appeared in the epilogue, but the focus of it was establishing the status and finishing the story of Hollis and Rupi's relationship. Don't get me wrong, I was glad to know what happened to them, but since this book follows Hunter and Demi, I wanted the epilogue to be about them. All of that being said, apart from the epilogue being a small disappointment, I don't really have anything negative to say about this book. Again, it wasn't one of my all-time favorites, but I did enjoy reading it. I gave this book a 4-star rating. Sitting at number 4, we have The Goal, which is the 4th book in the Off-Campus series. This book is about Sabrina, a law student who basically has her entire life planned out. Graduate from college, kick butt in law school, and land a high-paying job at a cutthroat law firm. Meanwhile, Tucker is again one of the hockey players on the Briar U hockey team. Sabrina and Tucker meet at a bar one night, which ultimately ends with a sizzling hookup that changes both of their lives forever because they become parents at the age of 22. This book was actually structured a little different from the rest of the series. The first half of the book was when Sabrina and Tuck were in college, and the second half of the book covers their post-college life as new parents. This was actually one of the reasons why I like this book a lot. I thought it was really nice to see both of these characters out of the college setting and trying to manage their education and career goals while caring for a newborn baby and dealing with their own relationship. I also kind of like Sabrina's character, not gonna lie. Although Sabrina could be a little bit brash sometimes, I really admired how she worked her way to the top with nothing but hard work and perseverance. I also love how sweet and patient and charming Tuck is. Tucker is just one of those characters that everybody adores. It's just really hard to dislike him because of how compassionate and giving he is. This is also another slow burn romance. Although it was pretty evident that Tuck was head over heels for Sabrina since the beginning of the book, it took Sabrina a long time to get there herself, and even when she got there, it took her a little while longer to accept her relationship with Tuck. Overall, I enjoyed reading this book. It was not a perfect book by any means, but its characters were just so enjoyable and compelling that I just can't help but care about them. I gave this book a 4-star rating. Coming in at number 3 is The Risk, which is the 2nd book in the Briar U series. This book follows Brenna, who is the daughter of the coach of the Briar hockey team. Brenna desperately wants this internship. However, the only chance she has at potentially scoring this internship is getting help from Jake, who is the captain of the Harvard hockey team, and of course, Briar's greatest enemy. They end up striking a deal where Jake becomes Brenna's fake boyfriend, but for every fake date they have, Jake wants a real one in return. This couple actually surprised me. Jake and Brenna were introduced in The Chase, and though they interacted a couple of times, I didn't think much of it. I also never expected Brenna to get together with a Harvard boy, considering how big of a supporter she is of Briar and her dad. Them being together is basically forbidden love, which I loved a lot. It definitely spiced up the story a little more, and I absolutely love this couple together. This book was also very refreshing because it wasn't a Briar book. By that, I mean that every book in both series so far features 2 characters that both attend Briar, but this book is the only book that features a Briar student and a Harvard student. I absolutely love how tough, snarky, confident, and funny Brenna is. After reading this book, Brenna became one of my favorite characters in the entire series. I also can't forget about Jake because I also loved his character as well. I love how arrogant, bold, and cocky he is and how he's not afraid to go for what he wants. Also, Brenna's and Jake's sarcastic teasing and back and forth banter was just very entertaining. The chemistry they had was just amazing. They pushed each other's buttons. They just definitely clicked for me. Something I will say about this book is that it started off pretty slow. It didn't really get good until like 100 pages in, but once you hit the 100-page mark, I literally could not put the book down. I rated this book 4 stars, but I would say it's more like a 4.5 stars if only Goodreads will let us rate 0.5s. Sitting in the number 2 spot is The Score, which is book number 3 in the Off-Campus series. This book follows Allie, who is nursing a broken heart. After recently splitting from her long-term boyfriend, she thinks the solution to her problem is finding a wild rebound, which happens to be Dean. However, one night with Allie rocks Dean's entire world, which initiates his pursuit for love. Dean is someone who gets everything he wants, but he has yet to meet a girl immune to his charm until Allie. When I saw this book was about Allie, I could not contain my excitement. And because I was so excited, I expected great things from this book, and let me tell you, I was not disappointed. This book is one of my favorites. I really don't know what it is that made me like Allie so much. I think it was her energy and her vibe in general. I did really like how she challenged Dean though. Since Dean is someone who gets everything he wants, it was really necessary for him to have someone in his life that doesn't make things easy for him. Now let's talk about Dean. I like the charm of his character and how funny he was. There was just something about his personality that pulls you into the book. The character growth of Dean in this book was also pretty big and something I liked a lot. It was really nice to see him make mistakes, acknowledge them, and learn from them. The overall story was just very enjoyable to read. I don't think I ever found myself bored. I ended up giving this book 4 stars, but it definitely deserves to be a 4.5 stars. Coming in at my number 1 favorite Elle Kennedy book is The Deal. This is the first book in the Off-Campus series. This book follows Hannah, who wishes to get her crush's attention, and Garrett, the captain of the hockey team, who needs to pass a class in order to keep his spot on the team. Upon seeing Hannah's high grade in a class they share together, Garrett tries to get Hannah to tutor him. They end up striking a deal, that deal being that Hannah will tutor Garrett if he helps make her crush jealous, which initiates their fake relationship. There are just so many things to love about this book. Hannah and Garrett have amazing chemistry. Their friendship before dating was just so real, and I was here for it. You could really see that they cared for each other, and they took the time to get to know one another. Their relationship was just nicely developed as friends, which made their connection as a couple phenomenal. I absolutely love the character Hannah. I love how sassy, confident, and sarcastic she is, and how she knows how to put jocks like Garrett in his place. She was also just a very down-to-earth character, not gonna lie. I also really love Garrett as well. He is so cocky, but I honestly found that side of him very funny. I really can't pinpoint what it is about his character that I love so much. I just love all of him. I really think it's just reading from his perspective and his voice that makes you fall in love with his character. Both Hannah and Garrett also had very dark backstories that were covered well in the book. I really loved how they both helped each other overcome the horrors from their past. This book was definitely a page turner. I gave this book a 5-star rating. I should mention that I rarely rate books 5 stars, but this book absolutely deserved it. Alright friends, that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed hearing my ratings of Elle Kennedy's romance novels and my thoughts about them. If you have read either series or both, let me know how you would rank them and your thoughts on each book in the comments down below. But if you have yet to read these books, I hope I just convinced you to read these romance novels. I am probably very biased, but they were just so good and I definitely feel like you should read them. Anyways guys, before I go, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!
Pull the key out the ignition, run your mouth but I never listen. You hold me back, will never last, keep talking all your shit. Wondering how all this started, you left me broken hearted. You flip my words, yeah this love hurts, keep talking all your shit.